Okay, good morning. Good Chodesh. It's Iyar. It's already Iyar. Chazal tell us that Iyar, the letters of Iyar, stands for Ani Hashem Rofecha. We say in the end of B'Shalach, we have that phrase that, so anybody needs healing, this is a month of healing, hopefully. So we're gonna go into, I don't think we'll get through the 9th chapter, it's just because there's a lot that happens here. Because as we left off, that Gidon kind of rides into the sunset. And what do you do when you ride into the sunset? You have 70 kids. I mean, makes sense, right? You just have a bunch of kids. And then if that's not enough, you have one with the Pilegesh, the concubine, obviously. That's Avimelech. And I mean, the reason that's being set up for us in the end of Perek is because it's telling us that, okay, something not good is going to happen, obviously. And I'll just direct your attention back to the end of Perek where in verse 31, Pasuk Lamed Aleph, when it says Upilag Sho Asher B'Shchem. So anytime you see Shchem, you should automatically think like, okay, something not good is going to happen. Nothing good happens in Shchem, sadly. Our first, the brothers go out to graze the sheep near Shchem, and that's when they sell Yosef, and that's where that happens. Shchem and Dinah, and that, like so, and throughout history, and Ad Hayom Hazeh, you can't just walk into Shchem now. Nablus, you can't just go there. It's very, very difficult. That's where the tomb of Yosef Atzadik is, and and this is just going to add to that list of Shchemness, or whatever you want to call it. But then it says, so he has a Pilega, she's in Shchem, and she also has a son because 70 is not enough. I mean, I imagine there must have been some daughters too, I hope. I mean, just percentage-wise, it has to be that way. But the Torah, this is the way the Torah talks. Vayasem es shemo Avimelech. So we pointed this out last week, that whereas every other time in Tanakh, when someone is given a name, it's Vayikra es shemo, or he was known as, but you don't see this Vayasem es shemo, which literally means, how do they translate it here? And he called his name Avimelech.
That's not good. That's not good.
Right? Huh?
Vayasem,
he plays. He does, like you can say designated, but the key is right. And so then ask yourself the question: who called him Avimelech? So just kind of hold that thought, because first of all, it's not a given that the father gives the name. In the story of the tribes, we see that Leah actually, in the first few boys that are named, she gives the name. She Vatikra. This is not even Vayikra, but it's Vayasem, placed upon him. So, ultimately we're going to go with this. It could be that as we're going to develop this persona of Avimelech, that Avimelech put it on himself. He declared himself Avimelech. And it'll become clear when we see what happens, because when you have 70 quote unquote legitimate brothers, or brothers of a legitimate marriage, and then you're the concubine's son, I imagine you're going to have a few issues. I imagine you're in need of some sort of therapy, right? So I don't know if there's like a concubine therapist or things like that, but I imagine that you have some sort of complex that you have to deal with and whatever. So let's see what happens here, beginning of chapter 9. So, Vayelech Avimelech ben Yerubbaal Shechema el achei imo, vaydaber lehem ve'el kol mishpachat beit avi imo lemor. So Avimelech, and he refers to himself as Avimelech, the son of Yerubbaal. It doesn't say, we don't see Gidon anymore. Yerubbaal. Now, some of the Mefarshim, they point out that he specifically uses the Baal name because Shechem is a place that was, first off, if we look back in Yehoshua also, it's not a place they directly conquered, and they left some Chivites there, and they left some other descendants there. So they kind of had this like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, but not everybody in Shechem was the holy roller. Not only that, Shechem was also an Ir Miklat. So actually, in just finishing it at Daf Yomi now, we're learning Maseches Makos, and the second chapter of Makos deals with something called the city of refuge. That if someone kills b'shogeg, b'shogeg does not mean by accident. B'shogeg means without intention, but you knew what you were doing. So a very complicated situation in the Gemara, and there were 6 cities that were designated as a city of refuge, 3 in Israel proper, 3 in Transjordan, because based on the population center, 1 was in Shechem, and if somebody is convicted of killing B'shogeg, he has to go and stay in that city of refuge. You know how long? No? Until the Kohen Gadol dies.
Can you just give an example of killing a children?
So the Gemara's 2 examples are, one, if a person's climbing up a ladder and either the rung slips out or you fall down, or if let's say you're swinging an axe and part of the Gemara has a whole concept, upward motion, downward motion, part of the up of the down of the up. But if the axe handle flies off, or if perhaps some of the wood chips that you're chopping, in other words, and the Gemara debates whether is this closer to intentional, like you should have known better, or is it closer to it's not your fault? Mazid karv ones. So let's say in the laws of Shabbos, we have the term shogeg comes in the laws of Shabbos. So leaning against the wall because you want to relax and you hit the light switch, that's not shogeg. That's onus. So that's considered something that's out of your control or out of your knowledge. So something that happens by accident, we call by accident, you're not held liable for. Shogeg on Shabbos is I knew that it was Shabbos, but I didn't know what I was doing was wrong, was prohibited. Or I knew that this is prohibited, I didn't know it was Shabbos. That's the definition of shogeg. So if you try to transpose that to the case of in other words, I knew somebody was there, but I didn't know that, or I should have known somebody was there. So that's this. But anyway, and by the way, anybody who committed a murder before they had to go to case had to go to Ir Miklat also. So what's the point of Ir Miklat? It's that something called the Goel Hadam, the redeemer, the avenger of the blood, had within halachic legal rights, could kill somebody. You could kill, so you killed my family, I could kill you, and I'm allowed to, with impunity. I use the word unintentional, not accident.
So when he gets to the reply, do they decide then if it was?
So in other words, before the case, they go to Ir Miklat, and it's like playing freeze tag or tag, and that's home base.
It's like an attractive nuisance, like that kind of concept.
Yeah.
Not all lawyers.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
That sounds like a lawyer term.
Like that someone's gonna mess with it.
Yeah. So the Ir Miklat, they were protected from the Goel Adam. And if they go to court and then they get convicted and they have to stay there until the death of the Kohen Gadol. It's a very weird halacha. It's found a couple of times in the Chumash and Bamidbar particularly. And the Mishnah even says that the Kohen Gadol's mother used to knit sweaters, paraphrasing, for the residents of the Ir Miklat, so they shouldn't daven that her son should die. Because
I'm sure I learned about it. That or any stuff, but you never think about it.
Right, because it's in the Chumash. It's a straight up, like, very detailed portion of the Chumash. It's not like a small thing. So there's a whole chapter, the second chapter of Makos. But since Shechem, so imagine what kind of people live there. So you have killers. Okay.
It's hysterical.
Anything they do is just, I can imagine. If you don't watch Yehudim Bayim, I mean, it's just, it's comedic gold. Yeah.
Biblical Hebrew skits.
Yeah.
Where are they?
On YouTube, you can look it up. Yehudim Bayim. And you have to put it in
Yehudim Bayim.
you make it in Hebrew and you make a YouTube and it's but don't not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. Do it the day after you make it good. Okay. So in Shechem, so that's why he said, so look at this. So he goes to Shechem to his mother's family. Now again, this is a kid with a complex. His mother is only the Pilegesh of Avimelech. And he goes to what's his mother going to do? You got to speak to the mother's family of Gidon, right? And what's she going to do? Nothing. So you got to speak to her brothers because they're like, I guess she has some sway or something, but the brothers, and they spoke to them, the entire family of his mother's household. So he's like, I'm gathering the family together, and he goes like this: Dabrina be'aznei kol ba'alei Shechem. This is the term that's used. Like normally when you talk about people who live in a city, you call Toshevim or Yoshevei Ha'ir. Well, that's Ba'alei Ha'ir. So what does that mean? When you say Baal, what is that?
Balabus.
A what?
The balabus.
Right, the Baal, right, like you own it.
Okay.
You own it. Now, it's interestingly enough, it's the same term that we use for a spouse. Baal
Balabus.
is, I'll tell you something really interesting. This is really good. It's a great bar mitzvah. Oh, you have a bar mitzvah word, okay, but it's not good if you have divorce in the family. So, right? Finally, he finally learned his parsha. Okay, it took a few years. Now, it's very exciting. So they say that when a person does a mitzvah, you're called a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, a son or a daughter of a mitzvah. However, a person who commits an avera is called a baal avera. So the reason is that baal is a relationship that can be broken. It's not automatic. It's one that you have to work on, but it's also one that you can sever, unfortunately. But when it comes to bar or bat, you cannot, like, you're a child no matter what. Like, no matter what you try to do, you could disconnect, but it's still your child, and you're still. So when it comes to mitzvahs, you're always connected to a mitzvah. You cannot disconnect from a mitzvah. But when you come to avera, you can always say, I could do tshuva, I could remove myself from that. So it's a nice, unless you have divorced parents, it's not good for a bar mitzvah, but it's a nice thing to like keep in your back pocket. You never know when you might need something like that. So they're called the Ba'alei Shechem, and maybe it's also, it could be a play on the words because they're not the holiest people and they worship Baal. So if he uses his father's name, Yerubal, and bring in the little Baal business, oh, maybe I'll get your attention. It gives him a little bit more sway. Okay? So he says to them, Ma tov lachem, hamshol bechem shivim ish, kol b'nei Yerubal, im mishol bechem ish echad, uzechartem ki atzmechem uvesarchem ani. So again, using the word, as we saw last chapter, the word moshel, and he's using it in the real way that we understand it, is like, you want these people to lord over you? Like, what would you rather have? 70 guys who are the son of, my tati, but these 70 legitimate sons, and they're going to divide it up into provinces, into neighborhoods, and zip codes, and gerrymandering the districts, and God knows what. And then, would you rather have that, or would you rather have me?
He's telling this to the sons to tell to them, to the 70.
He's telling it. No, he's telling it to his uncles. His uncles and the people of Shechem. He's saying it to the people of Shechem. In other words, Gideon's gone, and he left 70 sons. So ultimately, is what?
His uncles and his brothers.
No, he's talking to. He goes to his mother and his mother's family in Shechem, not his brothers. Right. So, and in other words, he's trying to garner support for his candidacy. So he says to them, and so he appeals to their sense, like how do you get yourself, what makes you appeal to a crowd? So one way, which we see all too often, is make you afraid of the alternative. What you have or what you could have is terrible, horrible. Oh my God, that's the word. You need me. I'm the one that could save you because I'm not him. Right? I mean, there was a question that was asked in the forum the other day. Like, do you actually have anything to say, or are you just like against someone? Right? Which is a very valid question because it seems that's a lot. We hear it all over the place.
Yeah, I was going to ask him if you were talking to a Muslim community, what would you be telling them? How would you be a good governor?
He said, because very small percentage of voters. I'll remind me after when I shut the recording off to tell you something about my meeting with the senator that happened this week. Like, it was just, yeah. Anyway, so he says to them, "Do you want 70 to lord over you, Moshel, to control, to lord over you? Is that what you want, or all those sons of Yerval, or that one person? And by the way, who's that one person?" And that's a language that's used throughout Tanakh. When we say, Atzmi uvisari. We find it by Yaakov and Lavan. We find it, we're flesh and blood. Blood is thicker than the water. I mean, we're mishpacha. Landsman, right? Where like you want those strangers or do you want me?
Why are they saying?
Because they're not really. He's only the son of the concubine, and they're the son of his wives, and right. So he's speaking. He's right. He's speaking to his group now and saying like, look, I'm from Shechem, and by the way, also implying that I'll take care of you. Everything's gonna be okay if I'm in charge. Don't worry, Shechem. You're gonna have tax breaks. You're gonna have social services. You're gonna have first garbage pickup. You're gonna be the first streets that are plowed in the snow. Because it snows a lot in Shechem. Doesn't. Does not. The sand. Oh, get the sand cleaners, right? Okay. And so Vayidabru achei imo alav be'oznei kol balei Shechem es kol hadvarim ha'ele vayed libam acharei Avimelech ki amru achinuhu. So he convinced the mother's brothers, and they speak to all the machers of Shechem. Again, when it says Baalei, also like not the extra people that are there because they're criminals or whatever, but like the real Shechemites, the real residents, not the riffraff, not the, you know. I used to live in a summer community, as you know. So there was always this tremendous tension between the people that lived there all year round and the people that came just for the summer. Tremendous. If you've ever been in a summer community, right? I mean, you can ask me like your son, he goes to deal, like so. It's and it doesn't ever go away, no matter what. And they call them the summer people, and then to insult them, they would call them like the winter people, but it's really like the all year round people. And it was unbelievable. And if you ask anybody who was there all year round, the favorite day of the year is the day after Labor Day. The day after Labor Day, because the weather, it was a beach town, and the weather was beautiful still. September was the nicest month, and everybody's off the beach, and we have it to ourselves, and we love it. At some point, they did have to admit, and they recognized that it was the summer community that supported the community because they brought in a lot of money to help, upkeep in the shul and everything. But it was quite an interesting dynamic, and everyone thought that like this is my place, and who's the one, and who do you think, by the way, were making the decisions in the shul and everything? It was not the year-round people. It was the summer people, and then like they would show up like on Thanksgiving, they would show up on Hanukkah maybe to like come make a board meeting, make a decision that didn't involve anybody, So it's like, who are you? No. So the Baalei Shechem, I'm the balabas here, right? So I'm in charge. So the family convinces them. So they incline their hearts after Avimelech. Why? And they said simply, Achinu, he's one of us. Which goes a long way when you have to convince people, when you say like, I'm one of you, I'm part of you. It really makes a big difference. And by the way, realize it or not, we do that a lot. I know a lot of people, I don't know about it here, but I know a lot of people that feel more comfortable, let's say when you go to a doctor, if the doctor's Jewish. For no other reason, whether he's good or not, but that he's Jewish is all of a sudden like a big, important determining factor in your care. And somebody who's not Jewish, we're automatically like did you go to college? Like, did you?
בדיוק.
Right? I mean, it's for better for worse, but that's because it's achinu, right? When we had, I can't even remember it. Like my wife and I talk about how we kind of like blocked out of our memories those days when we had very little children. We had a lot of them, Kenan and her, a lot of them at once. I don't know how we survived. Like I just like we totally blocked out of our memories because it's a lot. And you're like we didn't sleep, and we had a million things to do, and we didn't have it. Like we didn't have help. It's like, oh my God, like I said, we just blocked it, right? So yeah, like I don't.
It's like don't understand why you don't remember certain things.
But we don't want to remember like. How do we get you out of the house on Shabbos morning? Like, forget it. Again, it was all girls always whining. I don't want to be matching. So we when
like what I ate.
right when the babies were born, I had one job, North Shore Hospital, very close with our doctor, still at Ayamazeh. And as a matter of fact, it was our doctor that convinced us to like, you know what, try for the boy. So when this boy is born, and my wife is like sitting there like. And me and him are dancing in the room and this and that. She's like, hello, he's like, we'll get to you. So my one job in the whole L&D process was I had to interview the anesthesiologist. I had to make sure that like was really certified, and I don't want a resident, and I don't want, because like, especially in North Shore, it was a teaching hospital. So it's like, hi, I'm in 10th grade. I'm thinking about going into medicine. You mind if I examine you? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I had to vet them. There was no breathing. You just shut your mouth. Don't you say a word to me. Like none of this. You get me that epidural, and you get me that guy quickly, and make sure that he's like the top guy in the whole thing. And there are no points for natural birth. You don't get a bonus in heaven for doing a natural childbirth, right? So like that was my job. And then, so by the end, like we had it down to a science. So when Moshe was born, it's hard to believe he's going to be 10 already. So we have, you have the baby, and then they put you into this other room before you go to your room, in the recovery room, and the nurse is coming and doesn't realize this is her 6th child, and she's on the phone. She's on the phone. She's like, "Ma'am, I'd just like to talk to you, and I'd like, I have some things to go over." She goes like, who's she? I go, she's calling caterers. She's got to make a bris already. Like she's ready. That was awesome. I had to get the moil right away. That was my other job. Like, and that job I never had before, but I had to get the moil right away, which we got the moil that we wanted. And she's already like interviewing caterers, and she's not even out of the recovery room yet because, but blanked it out. Okay. So Achinu is, so I have a Jewish doctor, or I have a Jewish lawyer, or, you get into a case, so it's a Jewish judge, you're like, oh, or like a Jewish cop. Like, I don't know, it's just something about it. And by the way, it's not just us, it's everybody. You could be Italian, and you could be Indian, you could be whatever it is. You just feel more comfortable when it's Achinu. So they pick Achinu. And look at this. Vayitnu lo shivim kesef mi beis bal bris. Vayiskor behem Avimelech anashim rekim ufachazim vayelchu acharav. They give him like tribute, or they give him, this is like his seed money or whatever it is, but it's symbolic, and it says they give him 70, so obviously, because he's going to take down 70 of his brothers, so 70 gold, 70 silver pieces, but it's from Beis Baal Bris. Here's the word Baal again. It's not from the Beis HaMikdash, it's Baal Bris, from some treasury that they have for their idol that they worship. Okay, and he uses it. He hires anashim rekim pochazim. This is not a description that you want next to your name. Okay, rake. What does it say?
Wow.
Headstrong louts. Okay, that's good. A headstrong lout. Here, you know what it says here? Empty. Right here it says boorish. What does it say?
Idle
I'll show you Hefker.
Hefker. Okay, Hefker means like, like I'll do whatever you want. Boorish and impetuous. Okay. So they hired a teenager. The word rekim is okay, rekim is always used in Chumash to discuss something that has no value. And when it says empty, it means like empty of any good quality.
So
Oh, yeah.
who
Oh.
has he made himself king of? Just
Well, so let's see. So Vayavo Beis Aviv. So he comes to his father's house. Now, it's Ephrasa. He goes to not Ephrat, but Ophrasa. It's Ophrah. He goes to Ophrah. I have to ask my friend who lives in Ophrah. I meant to text him this morning and ask him, and I forgot. But I want to text him if this is the same Ophrah that you have in Shomron. I imagine it is, or maybe that's what the town is named for. I have to ask him. I have a very close friend who lives there. Beautiful. It's a difficult neighborhood, but it's beautiful there. And so he goes Beis Aviv. He doesn't go to Ophrah. He goes like, I'm going to my father's house. So it's almost like it's under the guise of I'm visiting the mishpacha. I got to visit my father's house. Let's see how everybody's doing. How's the estate? And then, right? Vayaharog es achiv b'nei Yeruval shivim ish al even echas. Vayivaser Yosam ben Yeruval akaton ki nechba. So what does he do? I don't know. He comes, meaning like in one place, or he made almost like he made an example of them. And he Rashi just says it's Mishor Shahayu Bo Matzava. It's like, it was a place that like a lot of rocks, but you kill 69 people. That's a lot. He kills all of his brothers. And now it says 70, but 70 doesn't really mean 70. Whenever we use these round numbers, it doesn't mean that, as we discussed last week. But there was one who's hiding. His name is Yotam. So the modern day commentaries point out that, Yotam, it's like the Torah's hinting at you. If you look at the words, it's really like yatom.
Hmm.
You know, he's left, he's orphaned. Right? So Vayivastu, there's and so like every medieval story, you know.
It's also passive. Or is it?
No, right. He was left. In other words, he missed one. Or he got who he could. There's always one left. That's always how these stories go. Is that they miss somebody and he's the one that's going to come back and get you. Because the rule is that if you have to get rid of your enemy, you get rid of all of them. It's a story with same thing with Shaul Avimelech and Agag, and he decides, oh, I'll leave one, and look what happens. And the story of Purim is a direct result of that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you kill your enemies, make sure you kill all of them. I'm just telling you, it's come in handy. You never know when you have to knock somebody off, right? When Josh says the other day, he goes, I'll probably get whacked in a diner. I mean, that was just the most New Jersey thing you could ever say. He said that he announced his campaign in a diner because he goes, everything in New Jersey happens in a diner. And his colleagues in Congress are like, you announced it in a diner? He's like, yeah, everything in Jersey happens in a diner. He goes, I'll probably get whacked in a diner, which is like such a great Jersey reference, especially if you try to figure out like what exactly happened in the very last scene of The Sopranos.
He comes from North Baltimore.
No, yeah, Essex High School, right? What happened in the last scene? You remember that?
I didn't watch the Sopranos, actually.
They're in the diner.
He goes to meet, there's like different people looking, and it just kind of ends. So
That's
you're
right.
like, I don't know, amazing, a great show. I have a particularly affinity to the show. My wife worked on the set many times. They did a lot of scenes with them because her office, they do these custom lenses and stuff. So she got to know, they called him Jimmy. She got to know James Gandolfini quite well. He was like very, very lovely. Unfortunately died too young. Anyway, so everything's here. Sopranos, like here, they whacked 69 guys, but you left like, you know, little Junior around and whatever. So he's gone. Okay, now. Vayayasvu kol ba'alei Shechem v'chol beis Milo, vayelchu v'yamlichu es Avimelech lamelech, im elon mutzav asher b'Shechem. So all the inhabitants of the Shechem and this place called Beit Milo, wherever that is, they gather together. They make him now, okay, like when there's no competition, what do you do? Obviously, he's the king. You can't just be king. You have to be king if there's no competition. By this place called the Plain of the Monument, which was in Shechem, wherever that is. I don't know. I don't go to Shechem that much. I have only overlooked Shechem. I have never been inside of Shechem. If you go, and this is going to actually be quite understandable now in what's going to happen in a moment. But if you go to Har Bracha, so Har Bracha, where the yeshiva Har Bracha is, where Rav Malamed lives, and that's actually also where the Samaritans live. So you ever go visit the Samaritans, it's fascinating. They have they're concentrated there, and I think another group in Ashdod, and they actually have the whole area you could tour where they do their Korban Pesach. So the Samaritans is last vestige of this group, and they all marry each other, and they have very, very large ears. But they all marry each other, and it's like a whole thing. But they have this big Pesach sacrifice that they do, and people come from all the country to watch it. It's fascinating. And you could see how they bring the animal and the blood. Anyway, and there's also right there something called Tchina HaBracha. At the best tchina in Israel, the factory's right there. They have like, if you want to go try, they have like, you know, like a soft serve ice cream.
Yeah.
So you can like add the machine, they'll give you a little bit to try. It's really cool. It's you see it all over the country, but it's Tchina Har Bracha. But if you take the road to outside of Har Bracha, if you pass by the Samaritan and you drive around the back, there's an overlook there, and you could look and you could see right in front of you to the left is Har Grizim. That's why Har Bracha is called Har Bracha, because of Har Grizim. That's where the bracha was given to the Jewish people. And then right down below, you could see Shechem. You overlook Shechem. And there's actually, you know, in Israel, when you have these overlooks, and then they have usually in front of you like a diagram, it's like what are you looking at? You can see this, you can see this. There's so many great places like that in Israel. My favorite is the place. The next time you go, I'm just again frustrated tour guide, and I schlep my kids through it every time I go. You want to go to a place called Alfei Menashe. Alfei Menashe is the one like you see in the Chumash, but it's right below Tulkarm, I think. Yeah, but it's so it's like right in the where Route 6 kind of like meanders in and out of the Shtachim, but it's a beautiful place. A lot of people live there because it's affordable, but there's an overlook there. And again, they have one of these maps where you could see the Mediterranean, and then you can see all the way to Jordan because you see it in front of you, and they call it the narrow waistline. They often take American dignitaries, members of the government, they take them there when they go for the first time because they want them to understand what it is that we're dealing with when we talk about, West Bank, and we talk about, and when you say river to the sea and how narrow that really is, and you could see it in front of your eyes. It's so cool. Okay. And it's so easy to get to. It's not dangerous at all. You just go right off Route 6, you take an exit, you go into, and you tell where's the place to go. There's a beautiful shul right there. That's called Alfei Menashe. So in the Shrem overlook, it tells you exactly where the tomb of Yosef is. And they have these binocular things that you could look right down and you could see, and there's like a little white dome. You could see the tomb of Yosef. And right there, you're looking over Shrem. You think like so much Jewish history happened. You're like, is this maybe where Yosef's brothers saw him? And he was walking like down the mountain. They saw, oh, here comes that dreamer. Like, all these things that happen. And he's buried there, like all this amazing stuff. So Vayagidu Yotsam. So Yotsam, of course, I don't know if he's a little kid or whatever, but he's old enough to do something about it. And they tell him, by the way, your half brother, step brother, non-brother, whatever they call him, he's now the king after he killed all 69 of your brothers. And Vayelech ve'amot b'rosh Har Grizim. So he stands at the lookout. He stands at the head of Har Grizim, which is also symbolic because the place where the Jewish people were given the blessing of the nation could easily turn into a curse. In other words, you could take this blessing, and we always say, here you have it in front of you. You have blessing, you have curse. You have good, you have evil. We say it in Sefer Devarim all the time. So he's like, it's symbolic in that sense also. So he says, he stands at Har Grizim, Vayisak kalo v'yikra, and he starts yelling from the mountaintop. No microphones. Vayomer lahem shimu elai ba'alei Shechem vayishma lechem Elohim. He says, listen to me, inhabitants of Shem, so that Hashem may listen to you. And here he goes, this is, they consider it one of the most famous mashalim, famous parables that we have in all of Tanakh. And it's really, really interesting. So he says, Halo chalchu aitzim limshoch alei hamelech, vayomer lazayis malcha aleinu. The trees, they went to anoint a king over themselves. And this is like, if you want to talk about, people that study social theory or society theory, things like that, how do you decide like how to rule over yourselves? Like who should rule, this and that, you can get all Lord of the Flies or whatever. But they say the trees went to anoint the king over themselves. They said to the olive tree, rule over us. Right? Vayomer lehem hazayis hechadalti es tishni asher bi yichabdu elokim v'anashim v'alachti lenoch haleitzim. He says, I shall cause my richness to cease, whereby God and men honor themselves through me and go to wave over trees? It's a pasnisht. Now, Rashi tells us he's going to give 3 examples of trees. He gives an olive tree, a fig tree, and a vineyard and a vine. And he says this is a reference to Asniel ben Kenaz, Devorah, and Gidon. In other words, we say it all the time, especially when you have to deal with political leaders. Who's the smartest political leader? The one that doesn't want to do it. Because they say, oh, why are there no good people? Because people are good enough to do it, are smart enough not to do it. Because they realize that it's not how this works. So he says, what? I should stop being an olive tree. Olive tree, everybody uses olives. We have oil and for lighting the menorah and the Beis HaMikdash and all these wonderful things, pure Shem and Zayit Zach. And now I'm supposed to control over other trees? Not for me. Okay. So then they went to the fig tree. Vayomer eitzim la te'ena. L'chi at malchi aleinu. All right, fig tree, you rule over us. Vatomer lehem at te'ena hechadalti es maski v'estunu v'asei atova v'alachti aleinu al eitzim. I shall cause my sweetness and all the things that I can produce to stop so that I could lord over the trees. Now, lanua is to like wave over, right? Meaning like I'm on top of you and I'm controlling you. Vayomru aitzim lagafen l'chiat malchi aleinu. So they go to the vine, rule over us. Vatomer lemagefen hechadalti es tiroshi hamisameach elokim va'anashim v'halachti lanu aleitzim. I should stop. I should give up all of my vintage that makes people happy. It makes God Hashem happy, right? We say Baruch Nafshi today, Rosh Chodesh. Yayin is samach levav enosh. Wine makes the heart happy. It gladdens the heart. It gladdens Hashem, and I should wave over the trees. Vayomru eitz kol eitzim el ha'atad. Lech atah malach aleinu. And they go finally to notice that it's at, and then they go to the atad, the thorn. You reign over us. Vayomer kol eitzim, vayomer ha'atad el ha'etzim, im be'emes atem moshchim osi lemelech alechem, bo chasu v'tzili, v'im ayin tetzei eish min ha'atad v'tochal et arzeh halvanon. So the thorn says, if with honesty you anoint me as your king over you, then come take shelter in my shade. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Because who's asking a thorn bush? But if not, then may a flame come forth from the thorn and consume the cedars of Lebanon. Now, the imagery is not that complicated, but like obviously you have these beautiful producing trees, figs, wine, olives, a thorn. What does a thorn produce? Nothing. So I was reading here, Rabbi Hatton, he says, again, only this is the kind of thing that I would never understand. While the olive, fig, and grape are well-known species, staples of the biblical diet, mentioned in Tanakh many times, the exact identity of the atad is subject to disagreement. So the first time that we see atad, you know what the first time we see the atad? In the funeral for Yaakov Avinu, when they go from Egypt to Israel, to Canaan, it says they stopped in a place called Goren HaAtad. It was the threshing floor of the thorns. And the Gemara in Soto Daf Yud Gimel, Rashi mentions it there. It says that all the nations wanted to do battle, but then they saw the crown of Yosef on the casket of Yaakov, and they all stopped. It says like as if like there were thorns surrounding. We're not going, and they all put their crowns on it, as if to say like we're not going to touch it because it's guarded. That's the word atad. But we don't know what atad. It just says we just say it's thorns. So listen to this. This is very important because it's plant. Anybody here like planting? Do you do planting or gardening or anything? My mom loves gardening. She would like make her happy place. Me, I don't love gardening. No, I don't like being with trees because they make me sneeze. So some modern day botanists have identified the atad with various species of the lycium or boxthorn. And if you want to know, see, for example, Judah Felix, Nature and Man in the Bible, Chapters in Biblical Ecology, Sunsino Press. For an alternative but no less intriguing view, see Noga Haruveni, Tree and Shrub in Our Biblical Heritage from the Od Kedumim Press. There are a lot of people that spend a lot of time figuring these things out because when you see, it is important when you drive around Israel and you see certain trees or flowers, you're like, wait, when you see it's in the Chumash, like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, oh, I know what that is, right? So I always point that out also when when people don't want to hear from me on the bus and that kind of thing. Just because, again, frustrated tour guide. So these medium height, 1.5 to 2 meters, wild bramble bushes have a thick and stout low canopy of foliage that's full of thorns. Since the branches of the bramble often reach to the ground, the trunk is scarcely exposed, and therefore the shade provided by the bush is negligible. In the summer, the bramble sheds its leaves that then dry out upon the ground and become highly inflammable. In ancient times, the bush was often planted around orchards and vineyards to discourage both human and animal trespasses. So here he just goes to says, if this is the atad of the parable, then the message is clear. While the other trees were asked to become king or all productive members, yielding fruit, etc., the bramble yields but thorns. It's a source of neither shade nor produce. If anything, the bramble constitutes a threat to its surroundings, for not only do its sharp thorns harm any who venture too close, but its dry leaves can spread destruction far and wide when they're ignited. So too Avimelech explains Yotam. Though he lacks any constructive and useful qualifications to become a good king and leader, he has seized the vacant position by force. Although he promises to protect those who have been persuaded to appoint him, in the end he will destroy them and himself with his self-centered recklessness. Okay, so you got to love anybody who speaks in parable, because there's always somebody that can't figure it out. But ultimately, like I think people understood. And he says, and using this term, the Arzeh Levanon, the cedars of Lebanon. Okay, so Yotam gets up and he's screaming this from the rooftops or the mountaintop, and he's speaking to them. So imagine that. Oh yeah, sure. Okay, I got you. We're just gonna follow. Okay, so let's just see the next section, and then we'll see what happens after that next time. So v'ata'im be'emes u'v'tamim asisem v'tamlichu es Avimelech. So he's speaking a little bit tongue in cheek. And he says, okay, so if with honesty and tamim, we always use tamim, tiyeh Hashem alakecha, helech lefanei v'yeh tamim, tamim haya b'darasav. Completeness is like, and we say, when somebody's like such a wholesome person, we say, tamimistic. We're in the period of Sphira now. We have to count tamimos. You have to count full, complete days. So he's like, if with honesty and tamimisdikheit that you anointed and you appointed him as your king, and if you have done good with Yuval and his household, and you've acted towards him, corresponding after all the goodness that he did for you, that my father, he fought for you, and he battled for you, and he saved you from the hand of Midian. If that's your motivation, and you rose up on my father's house, and you killed his 70 sons, and you anointed Avimelech as your king. He's the, by the way, you have to show it, he's Ben Amaso. He's the son of, not his wife, his maidservant, his Belegish, whatever. Like, he's not even like so and you appointed him, and with the Baalei Shem, because he's your blood, he's your brother. And if you did this with like you really think that you did this sincerely, and you did this with such honesty, okay, then Simchu va'Avimelech v'yismach kam hu b'chem. Good, rejoice, and let him rejoice with you. Like, right, Gesundheit should be like Zamit Mazel. Vim ayin, but if not, Teitei eish mi Avimelech v'tochalas ba'alei Shechem es beis Milo v'teitei eish mi ba'alei Shechem mi beis Milo v'tochalas Avimelech. And if not, then fire should come up. And what's fire? So we'll see that it's going to be ultimately not actual fire, but what's the most destructive thing in society or in a political realm is discord. It tears everything apart. So he says, if that's case, the Teitei Eish from Baalei Shechem, we base Malova Tachlis Avimelech, fire is going to rise up and it's going to tear you apart. Vayanas Yosam Vayivrach Vayelch Be'era Vayeshev Sham Mipnei Avimelech Achiv. So he says his piece, and he has to run away and he has to hide. He's there in a place called Be'er. I don't know where Be'er is, but he's in hiding. So the next thing that we'll see next time is that Avimelech actually has like a good 3-year run. But then, 3 years, his father had 40 years, that's nothing. But interesting how everything goes great, and then all it takes is one person to make everything not great, and here we go. This is that all over again. So we'll see this at Mircha Hashem next time. I'm going to just stop the recording now, and I'll give you a full.
Yeah.